They say the silence comes first. A silence so absolute it bends sound, a kind of stillness that feels wrong, like the stars themselves are holding their breath. It comes before the cold, before the black shape cuts across known space, before the signal. No one remembers the signal clearly, only that it leaves a burn inside your skull. Those who survive it stop speaking. Some stop thinking. In the outer rim of the Calar expanse, among fractured moons and ancient orbital bones, something drifts. It's not marked on maps, and no trade routes go near it. But the name echoes, passed between trembling diplomats and ex-military captains who drink alone, the human ship. No official records confirm its existence. No footage ever survives in full. Yet fragments circulate. A shredded data core recovered from a Thuvian scout holds 10 seconds of distorted footage, angular black hull, long spines like wings of a dead insect, and a still figure standing motionless outside the airlock, without a suit, without oxygen. Not drifting, just standing. Watching. A captain from the Silic Dominion once gave testimony at a war tribunal. He'd seen the ship. His fleet of 16 vessels was patrolling a disputed sector when a rift opened, not a wormhole, something else. A shadow stepped through, and every system in their ships went dark. 16 fully armed cruisers fell silent. No weapons fired. No shields raised. Then they simply vanished. The captain only survived because his ship had suffered engine failure minutes prior and was towed behind the formation. His voice shook as he recalled it. "We didn't see an enemy. We saw inevitability." The Galactic Archives mention a ceasefire signed at the height of the Koran-human conflict, a war that lasted 12 hours. The Koran Empire, known for reducing worlds to ash in weeks, broadcasted a demand for surrender. The reply was a location. Their fleet jumped in. No one knows what they saw, but they surrendered unconditionally within the hour. The next day, their war council dissolved. They've remained neutral ever since. Every species has stories about the humans. Not their culture, not their politics, those don't last. But their nature. The unspoken, undeniable force that propels them beyond reason. They adapt faster. They persist longer. Where others retreat, they dig in. Where others break, they evolve. And when something threatens them, they don't respond with equivalent force. They respond with finality. The human ship is not a battleship. It doesn't have weapons, at least, not ones that leave debris. It doesn't transmit hails or warnings. It doesn't explain. It observes. It waits. Then it acts in ways no algorithm can predict, and no autopsy can trace. Ships that encounter it are either gone or changed beyond recognition. The few survivors exhibit mental structures altered at a neurological level. One ARVL pilot returned after 6 cycles missing. He no longer needed translation implants. He spoke every known language. And none of them. He died smiling, eyes open, whispering, "We're already here." The Confederation issued quiet protocols decades ago. If an unknown ship of black metal, non-reflective and silent, appears, retreat at maximum speed. Do not scan. Do not broadcast. Do not observe. Never pursue. If pursued, do not run toward populated space. In the official logs, it's listed as Anomaly Class A0. In informal terms, it's a God-class event. Not a threat. An extinction-level observer. Children in mining colonies dare each other to look for it through telescopes. Smugglers chart impossible paths in the hopes of glimpsing it for fame. But none who see it ever speak of it after. One mercenary vessel tried to engage it once, mocking the stories. The audio log recovered weeks later contained only this. "We thought we were predators. But the ocean doesn't notice the fish that drown." In every star system that knows war, that's heard screams over wideband or watched worlds burn, there's one phrase spoken in absolute seriousness, passed in whispers behind sealed doors: "If you see that ship, run." Ilari had never believed in myths. Raised in the crystalline libraries of the Thernali, her world valued logic, observation, proof. The stories about humans were entertaining, certainly, but to her, they were exaggerations, cultural residue clung to by species desperate to explain their failures. Superstition wrapped in science fiction. The so-called human ship was just another anomaly turned into legend by frightened minds. She wasn't a soldier or a politician. She mapped space, scanned dead stars, catalogued anomalies that broke physics, and sent data back for peer review. Her mind worked in vectors and gravimetric shifts, not omens. So when a dead zone appeared in her survey grid, one that had no mass, no radiation, no deviation yet resisted every scan, she didn't hesitate. Her colleagues warned her. Quietly. Firmly. One even submitted a formal protest to the Guild of Exploration. The region was flagged as blacklisted under ancient interspecies treaties. She listened. Then she signed her departure order. They reminded her of the phrase. The phrase every race knew. She repeated it calmly, mockingly. If you see that ship, run. It didn't slow her hand. Because she had her reason, and it wasn't ambition. 2 decades ago, a research ship vanished along the edge of this zone. It was registered to the Thernali, her species. Her parents were aboard. No wreckage, no beacon, no trace. The official report called it gravitational fragmentation due to subspace layering. Ilari had memorized the words as a child, reciting them like a mantra to keep the void from feeling too big. But as an adult, she found anomalies in the files, redacted charts, corrupted audio, overlapping coordinates that didn't make sense. The last signal they'd sent pinged from inside the dead zone. And no one ever followed it. She wasn't chasing a myth. She was following a question that had never let her rest. Her ship, Carinth, was small but equipped with top-tier survey arrays, shielded data cores, and autonomous AI capable of handling catastrophic interference. She packed in silence, bypassed guild permissions, and left at orbital dusk. No ceremony, no goodbyes. Just a heading and resolve. En route, her logs remained clean. No strange readings. No abnormalities. For 2 cycles, the trip was uneventful. She recorded and archived navigation data out of habit, but her mind was fixed forward. Toward the zone. Toward the silence. The border wasn't visible. There was no marker, no change in starlight. But the moment she crossed it, she knew. Not through instruments, those kept returning no values, but through something deeper. Her thoughts slowed. Not dulled, but stretched. Time felt suspended, and the Carinth's internal hum changed pitch, almost imperceptibly. As if the ship was holding its breath. She ran diagnostics. Everything functioned perfectly. No temperature shift. No power loss. And yet her skin felt prickled, like a storm was forming on the inside of her mind. She spoke to the AI, but its responses came with a delay, microseconds too long. It never lagged. Still, she pressed on. Within hours, her scans picked up subtle gravitational pulses, repeating, patterned, almost musical in structure. No known origin. No orbiting bodies. The patterns didn't match any known civilization's tech signature. They were rhythmic, recursive. She adjusted her sensors and mapped the pulses. The data formed spirals, recursive fractals embedded in dimensional displacement. It was math. But it also felt like intention. She sent the data back to Thernali Core, but her transmission queue froze. No error message. Just, pending. Still, no fear. She reviewed the last known coordinates of her parents' vessel and projected an intercept course. It matched the trajectory of the pulses. A part of her mind, one she didn't recognize, called that alignment inevitable. She barely slept, only resting in calculated shifts. The dreams came quickly, shapes she couldn't describe, whispers without language, a tall figure standing at the center of a great black bridge. She logged the dreams out of habit. 3 days after entering the zone, her proximity alarm activated. Not with urgency, but with precision. An object had appeared. No propulsion signature. No heat. But massive. Angular. Silent. And it was facing her. The ship didn't arrive. It was. It hadn't moved into her path. It hadn't emerged from a fold in space. It had simply appeared, impossibly vast, matte black, consuming light rather than reflecting it. Geometry that didn't make sense at distance made even less as it closed in. Angles overlapped where no intersection should exist. Her eyes tried to focus. Her brain resisted. Her instruments didn't register it as mass. No thermal readings, no energy output, not even displacement in the void. Yet it blocked starlight perfectly. It loomed without presence, weightless yet undeniable. She tried to back away, but the Carinth didn't respond. Not sluggishly. Not incorrectly. Just, not at all. No system failure. No lockout. She gave commands. They vanished. The ship had become a sealed chamber drifting toward a presence that rewrote the idea of motion. Her AI didn't answer. Its processes still showed as active, yet it was silent. The interface flickered once, briefly displaying a string of characters, unreadable, shifting shapes that made her eyes ache. Then nothing. The pulses returned, but not through instruments. They thrummed through the hull. Through her chest. Through her bones. Not sound. Not signal. Something older. Like a language not spoken aloud. The black shape loomed closer. Not accelerating. Simply decreasing distance. Each second pulled it nearer without velocity. The term, approach, didn't apply. It became more present. The universe narrowed around it. Her viewport dimmed, automatically adjusting to protect her vision. But she could still see it. Even with her eyes closed. A soft vibration began at the edge of her skull. She checked neural implants. No anomalies. Then she heard voices. Not external. Not imagined. Voices that didn't speak words, but arrivals, impressions landing fully formed into her awareness. She knew things she hadn't learned. A birthdate that wasn't hers. A scream on a frozen station. A name she'd never heard whispered in her ear with crushing intimacy. Images cascaded, wars fought in minutes, machines that aged time itself, a room with no ceiling where a single human sat, unmoving, for centuries. Her hands shook. The black vessel opened. Not in motion. No parts shifted. No seams appeared. But suddenly there was an opening, a passage of perfect darkness within darker form. It wasn't an invitation. It was a declaration. She tried to resist. She gripped the console, shouted at the unresponsive systems, engaged emergency override. Nothing responded. Her body remained still, but her surroundings warped. The cockpit stretched, dissolved. Not melted. Not disassembled. Replaced. She was inside. There was no pressure change. No temperature. No atmosphere, yet she breathed. The air was wrong. It felt like it watched her. Each breath came with the weight of examination. The walls weren't metal. They had texture, but no material. They pulsed softly, not alive, not mechanical. Neither. Both. She walked, though the ground didn't move beneath her. There was no sense of direction, yet she moved forward. Movement followed thought. Then she saw it. At the center of the structure stood a figure. Tall. Still. Not masked, not armored. Human. Entirely. But not normal. Its eyes met hers, and in that gaze came vertigo. Time fractured. She lived 1,000 lives in an instant. A child in fire. A captain alone among debris. A whisper between stars. The figure spoke. Not aloud. We warned them. Not her. Them. As if her presence was already known. As if her journey had been catalogued before she'd left orbit. There was no accusation. No curiosity. Only fact. We do not chase. We correct. She wanted to speak. Her mouth opened, but her voice didn't follow. Another presence formed behind her, one she couldn't turn to face. It had her mother's voice. But not the same tone. Not warmth. Something colder. Calmer. You were never meant to find us. Then silence. Then darkness. Then nothing. Hilari awoke in her ship, but something was wrong. Every display was active, every diagnostic clean, yet time itself felt fractured. The ship's chronometer showed less than an hour had passed since contact. But her mind bore years. Her limbs moved with the weariness of decades. She was alone, truly alone, but not unchanged. She attempted to verify her location. The starfield was unfamiliar. No known constellations. Her navigation system failed to triangulate. There were no pulses. No gravitational markers. Just stillness. Absolute, perfect stillness. She reached for communications. The system responded, but every frequency returned silence. Not static. Not jamming. Just nothing. As if the rest of the universe had been shut off. When she checked the logs, they were missing. No record of entry. No fragment of the encounter. Her manual recordings were gone. Her internal implants had no stored memory of the event. Only her consciousness held the imprint, and even that was unstable. Images flickered in her mind. Not like memories. Like impressions burned into space around her thoughts. Places that didn't obey geometry. Voices that weren't voices. A presence she could still feel at the edge of her perception, watching, not actively, but constantly. She examined herself. Biometrically identical. Neural patterns unchanged by external metrics. But she was different. Her reaction time was faster. Her perception sharper. She processed input before she realized she'd received it. She completed thoughts she hadn't begun. Something fundamental had shifted, not in her body, but in her frame of reference. The world no longer felt distant. It felt transparent. She didn't panic. Couldn't. The emotion didn't surface. Not because of shock or sedation, but because something had been rearranged. Her responses were precise. Efficient. Purged of waste. Fear was now a calculation. Wonder, a byproduct. She initiated a systems scan of her own body through the ship's medical suite. No foreign implants. No molecular changes. No parasites. Yet the results flagged a single anomaly, a signal. Origin internal. It pulsed once every 61 seconds. Not in radio. Not in EM. It wasn't detectable outside the scanner, and yet it was present. Embedded in her biology. She didn't understand it. But she recognized it. Not logically, intuitively. It was an identifier. A tag. She had been seen. And marked. Her attempts to jump to a known sector failed. The drive engaged. The coordinates processed. But every time, the ship arrived in another unknown space. Stars twisted wrong. Light bent subtly in ways that weren't natural. The laws of physics hadn't changed, but they flexed. Space had become pliable, and she was being directed, not trapped. She stopped trying to escape. She shifted focus. In this place, wherever it was, data moved differently. Quantum processes responded more fluidly. AI processing increased exponentially. The current became faster, sharper. She reprogrammed core modules without referencing manuals. It felt like recalling instead of learning. Knowledge she hadn't acquired flowed into her hands as if it had always been there. Then she received the transmission. Not via antenna or subspace relay. It appeared directly on her primary screen. One phrase, return not to warn but to prepare. No metadata. No encryption. No repeat. She waited. Nothing followed. She recorded her findings, but didn't transmit. She knew no system would receive them. Not yet. They weren't meant to. Ilari adjusted her course. There was no longer a question of survival or navigation. Her presence here had meaning. The myth of the human ship wasn't about destruction. It was about transformation. Not of machines, but of minds. Those who returned did not bring stories. They became them. She no longer believed in warning others. Warnings were for those unready. Her role was different now. Something was coming. And now she understood why the legends always ended the same way. Because after you see that ship, nothing else speaks loud enough to matter. Hilary emerged from the edge of the void 6 standard days later. The jump left no wake. The spaceport scanners didn't register her arrival. Only a local dockmaster caught the anomaly, an unidentified vessel appearing mid-orbit without approach vector or IFF signal. Protocol demanded quarantine. He didn't file it. He watched the playback twice, then deleted the record. She walked into the Interstellar Council Hall unnoticed. No one stopped her. No alarms triggered. Her credentials had long expired, but doors opened. Security systems ignored her. Not malfunctioning, bypassed entirely. She wasn't cloaked. She was accepted. Inside, the chambers echoed with disputes, mineral rights, border conflicts, whispered rumors of unrest on the inner rings. The usual noise of bureaucracies. She stepped into the central forum and spoke one sentence, asterisk. They will not wait for readiness. Asterisk. No one laughed. The room fell silent. She spoke again. No theatrics. No persuasion. Only certainty. They have observed long enough. The thresholds are converging. If we do not unify now, we will not be corrected, we will be replaced. Some dismissed her as another doomsayer. But others recognized the cadence. She wasn't theorizing. She was reporting. Within 48 hours, 3 silent packs reactivated. Protocols marked as relics of war were quietly reissued. Defense grids were recalibrated. But it wasn't military mobilization. It was realignment. The old division softened. Not out of fear, but comprehension. The story wasn't about the threat. It was about the mirror it held up. Nations didn't fear annihilation. They feared irrelevance. Hilary didn't stay. She had no home, no rank, no citizenship. Her name appeared in records again, but never on official rosters. She became a point in star maps, last seen near orbital station K-17, then gone again. Some said she was assembling others like her. Not survivors. Not victims. Witnesses. What no one saw was the pattern forming beneath it all. On outposts where she passed, local systems began to shift. AI cores updated without permission, and diagnostics revealed recursive code that no known developer authored. Research stations reported spontaneous insights, solutions to problems no one had solved. Communications networks stabilized beyond theoretical limits. Not interference. Synchronization. The changes were subtle, but deliberate. Galactic linguists began noticing convergences in language drift across species, syntax harmonizing, idioms aligning without cultural contact. Independent discoveries emerged simultaneously across different planets. Doctrines that once contradicted began to echo one another. The influence wasn't overt. It didn't command. It tuned. Meanwhile, the dead zone and the Kalar expanse disappeared. Mapping probes found nothing. No signature. No pulse. The coordinates now returned empty space. The myth had moved. Or perhaps, it no longer needed to stay in one place. Across the fringe sectors, ships began reporting brief encounters with a shape in the distance. Never approached. Never pursued. Always gone before confirmation. The reports were consistent, silent, massive, motionless. Never seen twice. Every witness described the same sensation, not fear, not awe, but judgment. Governments debated retaliation strategies. Councils drafted contingency plans. But their militaries grew hesitant. Not because they couldn't fight, but because they were beginning to understand what Hilary had seen. This wasn't a weapon to evade. It was a threshold. The human ship wasn't a legend. It was a verdict. And yet, Hilary's final message contradicted everything they feared. It was found weeks after her last transmission, encoded in a nonverbal pattern only decipherable through recursive harmonic logic, a system she never studied but suddenly understood. It said, asterisk, "They are not coming to destroy us. They are waiting to see if we can become something worth joining." Asterisk. The story didn't end in fire. It ended in a mirror. And for those who saw the ship, survival wasn't the point. Transformation was. That's why they warned her. And that's why, when she saw the ship, she didn't run. She changed.